Hello, welcome to Giving Instructions, the second Moviestorm tutorial. This tutorial is designed for Moviestorm Early Access version 1.04. I'm going to show you how to give your characters instructions and how to dictate the action on set. In the next tutorial we'll look at how to create characters and customize them yourself, but for now I'm going to use 3 characters that I've already created. So the first thing to do is to add a character to the set. Now I've already added Rod and Freddy, but we'll add Jane now. First of all, you need to make sure that the actor you want to add to the set is the currently selected character. You can see that Freddy is my current character. I'll switch to Jane by left clicking. I want Jane to appear somewhere around here, so I'm going to left click on the set, and from the pop-up menu that appears, simply choose Place Here. And there's Jane. Now when characters are placed on the set like that, they appear facing towards wherever you happen to be viewing them from. So you can see Jane is facing towards me now. You can easily change that by rotating this mark at the base of their feet here. So to rotate the mark, hold down the Control key, left click and drag. You'll see the mark is moving around there. If I release, Jane turns to face the direction that I've chosen. You can move the mark in more or less the same way. This time hold down Shift, left click and drag. Just move the mark to wherever you want Jane to appear. So I'll have Jane about there. And there she is. Now the mark that I'm moving there simply represents Jane's initial position on the set. And it's represented on the timeline. The timeline is the thing at the bottom of the window here. It's represented by this mark here. Perhaps the easiest thing to ask your characters to do is to move from one place on the set to another. So let's give Jane a walk command now. I'm going to ask her to walk to about here. So I'll left click on the set to bring up a menu, and I'm going to choose Move Here. And Jane sets off walking. Now you can see that first of all there's a path of footprints on the set there representing the approximate path that Jane is going to take. You'll also notice that a new move command has been added to the timeline immediately after the one that represents the place here command at the beginning. Crucially, there's also a new mark appeared for Jane, and that represents the end of the walk, and that can be manipulated in exactly the same way as we manipulated her first mark. So I can move it by holding down Shift, left clicking and dragging. I'll move her mark to about there. You can see the walk path automatically updates to reflect that new position. You'll notice also that the walk path is now slightly longer because it takes Jane slightly longer to reach that point. If you want to give instructions to a different actor, you need to switch to them. And we do that simply by using this pane here. So I'll switch to Freddy by left clicking on his portrait, and there you can see that's now highlighted on Freddy, so I can tell that he's my currently selected actor. I'll just move a little bit closer to him so we can see him in more detail. If you want to learn how to move around the set like this, take a look at the first Moviestorm tutorial, Moving Around. Characters can very easily interact with objects on set. I'll tell Freddy to sit in this chair here. By moving my mouse over the chair, and you can see that highlights. I'm going to left click. From the menu that appears, I'm going to choose Sit Down. There we are, Freddy sat down. Now there's a few things to note here. First of all, you'll notice that Jane's instructions, which were previously visible on the timeline, have now disappeared. That's because each character has their own individual timeline, and instructions are only displayed for the character that you're currently looking at. That makes it far less complicated when you're dealing with complex scenes. The other thing to notice is that the instruction that I've just given Fred, sit down, has appeared halfway along the timeline. That's because instructions are given and appear on the timeline at the time point that you were at when you gave them. So we were already towards the end of the timeline because we'd given Jane an instruction, which means that the sit down instruction for Freddy has appeared at that point. I can easily move it though, simply by left clicking it on the timeline and dragging it around. So I'll take it to the beginning so that he begins to sit down at the same time that Jane begins to move. Left click and release, and that's moved on the timeline now. As well as interacting with objects on set, characters have a number of interactions that they can perform themselves. Let's switch to Rod and I'll show you what I mean. Left click to select Rod, I'll just move over so we get him in field of view there. There he is. I want Rod to lie down, so I'm going to left click on Rod himself, and from this menu I'm going to choose posture, and that brings up a sub menu, and I'm going to choose lie down. And there we are, Rod's laid down on the floor, and you can see there's a new action being added to his timeline to represent that. If I left click on Rod again, you'll see that the menu has now changed a little bit. I've now got a stand up command which wasn't there before. Now this is an example of a follow-on gesture, and these gestures are only available if you've issued a previous gesture that relates to them. In this case the gesture was posture lie down. So if I now choose stand up, Rod gets back up on his feet, and a new action is added to his timeline to represent that. Characters can also interact with other characters. So Rod is still my currently selected character. You can tell because his name is highlighted in orange on both the character pane and on Rod himself. So with Rod still selected, I'm going to left click on Jane, which tells Moviestorm that I want Rod to perform an interaction with Jane. So from the sub menu there I'm going to choose Interact, and I'm going to go to General, and I'm going to choose Shake Hands. You can see that Moviestorm automatically issued a walk command for Rod before he did that, so that he was in the right position to shake hands with Jane. You don't need to do that yourself, Moviestorm will just figure it out for you. There are plenty of other interactions that can be performed in a similar way. The best way to find out is to just experiment and see what's available there. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see you for the next tutorial, creating characters.